What is going on, everybody? Happy late Saturday evening to you on the East Coast, and it's probably about 7 o'clock on the West Coast. Me and 49er Plus Pod, we tried to we were going to push it up this week because he was going to be out of town. He said he would message me if he felt like we could do something. He did, so here we are. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Good. How are you? This is a good welcome back. Being away for a couple days, but getting back to talk Niners before the Cardinal game tomorrow.
Yeah, this is like one of those games where it's like all like I told you off stream, like all the metrics point to the Niners beating them. So that those are those games where like anything could happen though, because it's the Cardinals Niners, it's division. Anytime there's a division game, I'm never like super positive, not super positive, but I'm super sure. Just because it's just weird stuff happens, they play each other twice a year. There's bad blood. We got the Hufanga Connor thing going on from last year, so I'm ready for the game tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. I like that the East Coast games for us East Coasters, they start a little later in the afternoon because I like to watch the early games sometimes and relax. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just like sometimes I like to watch Niner games that are on early. Like if they win, say at like 1 o'clock, by 4 o'clock, I could just watch the 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock games and be like, So sometimes I like that format.
I'll tell you what, though. I mean, being on the West, I mean, I've never lived on the West Coast. Starting at 10 would feel a little bit early, but it's football, so you get up for it. But then the night game would end at 8:30, right out there. So you still kind of have a night if you wanted to, I don't know, go to a movie, hang out with some friends, do something. It's not like, we're dragging to stay awake for that Sunday or Monday night game. At least I am. I don't know about anybody else, but it gives you a little bit more of a night, a little more flexibility.
I used to work bakery hours, so if the Niners played on Sunday night, I would take a really long nap during the day.
Okay.
So that when the 8 o'clock game ended, it'd say like midnight, and I had to be up at 3:30 or 3 o'clock. It didn't work though. Usually I was still exhausted. But it's the Niners, man. You can't I'm like obsessed.
I used to do that
for unhealthy obsession.
Preseason games, like because I would have like whatever was it called, like NFL Preseason Live or whatever that service is that you could purchase and watch preseason games. Just because what else am I doing in August, early September? But when they had a 10:30 game, I would take a nap probably until like 8:30. Make sure I was awake for that until like 1:30, and then go back to bed. Yeah, I even with some things like once I get on the recliner, man, it's like throwing a sheet over a bird cage. Like I'm done in like a half hour, but I can't watch games otherwise. I can't like sit up or sit in a kitchen chair.
I lay in my bed with my back kind of up against the backboard. And I mute the TV. I have to have I like to be left alone when I watch games because you
watch all games with muted?
It depends. If I know that the broadcast is going to be really bad, like if it's a bad group, I will mute the television. If it's a road game, like for instance, when they played the Chiefs this year, I will mute that. I don't want to listen to all the stupid crap and like having to talk about, they're going to talk about what's your face the whole time. Just like, I can't. Otherwise, I can watch the game and be relaxed. If I listen to the commentary and it's really bad, like I always told my brother, like, you notice the bad teams get the worst commentators and the worst refs for their games.
Yeah.
And I always tell my brother, because he's a Dolphins fan, I was like, the better you get, the better guys you'll have calling the games. And the crews that will work the games that matter, that the league cares about, will always be the top crews. And my brother looks at me and he goes, "You're right. That literally is the case." I'm like, I'm telling you, bro. If it's like it's the Chiefs and it's another team and it's the big money game and the league is, the selling point is, Mahomes, Kelsey, what's her face? Oh my God.
Oh, is it Aaron Andrews?
No, his girlfriend.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, that's their selling point. Then of course they're going to make sure that game is ref by the right crew, and they're going to have the perfect announce team for it. Who's going to, kiss ass, show the booth every 10 seconds. Well, it still works.
Looking at the NFC games this week, actually, I don't have them committed to memory, but Brady's doing the call on this week, right? It's the number one team, and this is a team that they're combined 3-5. A 2-2 team and a 1-3 team, and you're getting the number one crew. I think, but Brady did 3 straight Cowboy games, so you gotta Got to get him off of
This
that.
is his boyhood team, so I'm sure he's going to be excited to call this game. You would think, right?
I hope so.
Payout time is in the house. He is probably the coolest Rams. The Rams don't have a ton of YouTubers, but he's the best. He's one,
Oh,
and he's a
welcome.
guy, and
Thumbs up.
he doesn't brag, even though he should have, because they beat us straight up. Let's see what he has to say. He says, question: what are the 49er fans' opinion on Brandon Ayuk so far this season? Do you think he will go over 1,000 yards? I'll let you go first on that one.
He's on pace for like 750. He'll pick it up. 1,000. If he doesn't get to 1,000, obviously it's a disappointment because he went over 1,300 yards last year. The sad reality is the first 4 weeks of the regular season is Brandon Ayuk's training camp. So he's getting back on track with everything. You would have liked to think that the week that, Debo was out and with no McCaffrey, that he would have seen more targets than he did, but it went to Jennings. But again, we don't know why, if they were rolling coverage towards Ayuk or Ayuk is just getting his footing under him a little bit more. I think with 13 games remaining, and it looks like right now the number 1 seed might be out of play with Minnesota having that head-to-head victory, unless they fall off a cliff. 13, what do you would have to average? Maybe 50 yards a game. I mean, so it's definitely possible, but to say it hasn't been a disappointment would be a falsehood, right? But I he can get there. But I think it'll actually be close.
I saw a clip from somebody who was talking great about, I think it was the preview that the NFL does on YouTube about the game.
Okay.
And the guy who was doing the video was like, that's what happens when you have a training camp or something. And it was talking about Juwan Jennings having a really good year so far, and like totally taking a dig at Ayuk. My honest thoughts on Ayuk, super disappointed. His aura, there's this word going around right now, all these words that get popular by the youngsters, aura is one of them, or aurora, whatever, is of a guy who just looks like he'd rather be anywhere but with the 49ers right now. I don't know. His body language to me is absolutely deplorable. Do I think he has a chance to turn it around this season? Yeah. He's got Brock Purdy as his quarterback. And that's a good thing. It's like a really good thing. You could be Devontae Adams, who's head and shoulders a better player than Ayuk, and he's got Gardner Minshew as his quarterback. So I think he'll come around. But I think he might have a down year, kind of like Bosa had a down year last year with all the issues he had with being out of shape or out of game shape or out of training camp shape, whatever shape you want to pick. So yeah.
Yeah, the targets and the catches and the yardage is never going to be huge. I just did the quick math. He played 16 games last year. It actually might have been 15. He might have missed one for injury, but he definitely didn't play the last game against the Rams because the Niners had the number 1 seed locked up. Over 16 games, if you want to be a 1,300-yard receiver, you have to average 81 yards a game, right? So that's not wildly out of the question. Like he's not going to string together 4, 100, yard games. That's just not who he is and the way that Brock and Shanahan spread the ball around. Now, if it was Ayuk and a bunch of nobodies, yeah, he would get, maybe 10, 12 targets a game. But the way things are unrolling or unfolding, and McCaffrey coming back in, let's say, 5 or 6 weeks conservatively, it's going to eat into some receptions there. But, if Ayuk goes for 950 yards and they win the Super Bowl, are we going to care? If he goes for 850 and they win the Super Bowl, it's not going to matter. This is hopefully a team and a player that we always talk about getting hot at the right time. Like, hey, the Vikings are 4-0 now. They're looking good. At some point, Sam Darnold may or may not turn into a pumpkin. He may look into the mirror and go, hey, oh crap, I'm Sam Darnold. I shouldn't be playing like this. So it's great to start off hot, but I'd rather have a hot December than a hot September any day. So everything's in front of them. Everything's in play. Starting with the Cardinals, like you said, to kick it off, by every metric, other than maybe injuries, which I know we're going to talk about, this is a team that the Niners should beat relatively handily as the Patriot game.
How'd you know we were going to talk about injuries? I have like 2 things that I want to talk about.
Any week, any year for the Niners, we could talk about injury.
Always. I have 2 things that I didn't write down as topics, but I wanted to get your two things that have to do with receiver. First, did you catch any of the rumors on your small vacation about the Devontae Adams, and what would you do to put the? Yeah, I know it's stupid, right? But it's a question. So
And Lynch addressed it, right? I mean, he addressed it in his vague, we're open for anything. You've seen us, we'll be aggressive, we'll pull the trigger when it makes sense. I don't see how it makes sense unless somebody gets hurt significantly, whether Debo or Ayuk or even Jennings, because you still have Pearsall waiting in the wings whenever he's going to be in football shape and ready and acclimated. I could see the Niners making a move. I mean, they've made one, the past 3 or 4 years around the trade deadline, always picking somebody up, and it might need to be something maybe more on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, especially if the D-line injuries keep racking up the way they are, it's getting absurd.
It almost looks that way, right? That it ended up being a D-line again.
Again. And, and what else was floated out there for Adams? Maybe New Orleans. The Jets are always there. Like someone mentioned the Chiefs, or like, are you serious? You know what the Chiefs would have to pay the Raiders to get him, and it would be worth it.
Why would you do that in your interdivision?
No way.
That's like us trading Brock Purdy to the Seattle Seahawks. No, that's never going to happen. It could happen if the Raiders are dumb enough, but I mean, they are a pretty dumb franchise, but I don't think they're that dumb.
Well, it's got to be a situation. Remember however many years ago, it's got to be over a decade now, right? The Eagles traded McNabb to the Redskins at the time. But I think Andy Reid and that team knew McNabb was broken and done. It's like, well, if you're going to give us the best package, knock yourself out. He's not going to hurt us anymore.
That's like us with D Ford when the Chiefs traded him to us. The Chiefs had to be like, man, these guys are stupid, right?
They sent someone else's x-rays. They had to send someone else's MRI results of their back for that trade to even go through. That was ridiculous.
I'll never forgive John Lynch for that one. We literally got about 8 games of him being healthy, and then that was it. Like, that was it. He had like a little run in 2019 where we had Buckner and him and Ronald Blair and all these guys, and then gone. And then he never was anything ever again. They're taking it easy. He's looking like he could be back to his old self, and then he plays one game and he's out for the rest of the season. So,
yep.
How do I feel about the Niners defense matching up against the Cards offense? Well, I'll touch on it a little bit, Peo, other than I'll just say we talked about it. All the metrics point to the Niners winning this game. I was watching a video before we did the stream tonight, and defensive pass rush, they're not real good at getting after the passer. They give up a high QBR rating of like 110. So if you ask me how I think the Niners should win relatively easy, maybe by 2 scores, which in a division game I'll take. I'm not saying that couldn't be I could be a close game tomorrow. You never know. With the way things have been going this year, you can't really predict anything right now.
Murray's going to give the Niners problems. He gives a lot of teams problems, except for Washington last week. I don't know how they just got completely frog stomped by that.
This is the way the Niners, that wide 9 rush just pushes right past quarterbacks. You ever notice that with Bosa? He's always on the ground.
I
scream and yell at games like, get off the fucking ground. What are you doing?
I mean, apparently last week, watching some highlights and listening, whether it was ESPN or whatever, the Commanders basically just said, we don't care about your running game with Connor. We're just not going to let Murray beat us. So, they rush contain. They didn't get too upfield. The Niners can be disciplined and do that. Murray, I think, is averaging a little over 40 yards per game on the ground. Arizona, as a rush offense, is like a top 7 unit. So when you combine him and Connor, you're going to get about 130-ish yards per game on the ground. But this is a team that has weapons that you really can't sleep on. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a star. Trey McBride, if he plays, he got cleared from his concussion, but now he's got a rib issue, so now he's questionable. They have Michael Wilson Jr. They have Greg Dortch. They have weapons that can play, and Murray can do his best. We'll call it Brock Purdy impersonation of running around in the backfield, but he'll actually run upfield and he'll actually gain positive yardage, where Brock's always looking downfield with his eyes, looking to push the ball downfield. But defensively, no pass rush. Linebackers are mediocre. Their 2 cornerbacks are giving up over like 110 QBR each. Buda Baker is like the biggest name on that defense, and he's been like a liability the last year and a half. So there shouldn't be a major slowdown of this offense this week versus last week. So you could argue, I think pretty easily, right? Patriots have a better defense than the Cardinals do. And the Niners did whatever they wanted against them.
I think with the 49ers, with the Cardinals, you got to just the run defense and the rush lanes are the two things you really got to worry about in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Do not overrush. Do not rush upfield like you always do. And you got to play well. I mean, we played well against the Patriots last week on run defense, but they're a bad team. They don't have a lot going for them. So I wasn't like, I don't know about you, but I wasn't overly impressed with that game. Like I was happy, but they suck. So like, the Patriots are bad. This will be I never thought I'd say this, but the Cardinals will be a litmus test for me, kind of to see where the Niners really are.
For the Niners defense for sure.
Yes,
a whole lot more punch. Yeah, a whole lot more punch for the Cardinals offense. Mobile quarterback, bona fide number one receiver, bona fide top 5 tight end. If he's healthy, they can run the ball. What I will take away from that Patriot game though last week was everyone I think was still wondering, yeah, this is a team that the Niners should beat. They won by 17. They covered for whatever that's worth for the gambling folk out there. And we knew that the Patriots are going to try to establish the run. The Niners knew that. And it was okay, well, let's see if you can actually stop a team and make them one-dimensional when you know what's going to happen. Like, how bad is this run defense? Can they not stop you even when you know it's coming 70% of the time? And the answer was they stopped it. I think the Patriots had 23 rushes for 74 yards, something like 3 yards a carry. So the Niners, and granted, Jacoby Brissett and that receiving core, there's no threats anywhere, but it would have been eye-opening if the game was closer than it was. It was eye-opening once Guerrero fumbled that second half kick return and made it a 10-point game. And then he was just put on the bench and Debo was back there on kick returns. So the Niners handled business. Yeah, like 44-10 would have felt better. But
yeah, because they're having issues with the red zone. I think they're like, I have a statistics here. Let me bring it up. Did I erase it? Shoot. Yeah, I must have erased it. Damn. Just to say that the Niners have really, when it comes to
they're at least a bottom third red zone team.
Yeah, I think they said they were like 19th in the league or something.
Yeah.
And red zone scoring, which is not good. You're almost 20, which is like, yeah, that's not a good. They have a lot of seasons still. I mean, you got to remember Christian McCaffrey makes a huge difference with red zone offense because you, as a defense, you have to account for him in the pass and in the run game, and then you have all these other threats like Ayuk, Debo, Jennings. Jennings, to me, I've always been big on bigger receivers. I think we might have talked about this last week, like the TOs, the JJ Stokes of that time when we had like a bigger receiving core. And even Rice was 6'2". It wasn't like he was a short guy. I like big guys that can go up and get it. Like Kittle catching that touchdown last week I love seeing that from tall guys. Like, be big, play big. Stop playing like a slot guy. Get your hands up there, jump and bring it down. Like you have like a 3 to 4 inch difference between a 5'10" corner and a 6'4" tight end. Like, and same thing with Jennings. He's about my height. He's about 6'3". That's a good size for a receiver. And he's meaty too. He's got some girth. So let's take advantage of that.
I think to have not everyone's going to have a DK Metcalf type of receiver, but I'm with you. Sadly, back in whatever it was, 95, I guess 95 when he got drafted, I had a JJ Stokes jersey. That was a mistake. Wow. That was a mistake on a lot of levels. But I'm with you. It's okay to have and Kyle is always about this, interchangeable parts where you can put a receiver lined up as a running back, and Ayuk's not a huge guy. He's like 6 foot, maybe 6'1". Pearsall's a little bit bigger than I thought, right? He's like 6'2", which was surprising. I thought he would have been smaller in the Shanahan mold. But I'm with you. And I still think that's going back, 12 years at this point. That was the thing that still bothers me about the Ravens Super Bowl was you have Randy Moss on the field inside the 10 once Gore got you down there and you had 3 downs and you don't throw it to Moss once. You would have just manipulate the formation however you can so you get Moss one-on-one and throw him 3 jump balls. I guarantee I guarantee he would have come down with one of them. Doesn't mean the Niners would have won because the Ravens would have gotten the ball back. But yeah, Brock got away with that pass to Kittle. He threw it into triple coverage. If you throw that ball to a 6-foot tall receiver, probably gets knocked away. The fact that Kittle's 6'4" with a pretty decent wingspan helped him out a little bit, but they don't have many of those guys. And we saw Jennings, was it the Rams game? Or yeah, when he went up and over, he jumped and went kind of took it off of the guy's face mask.
Those are my favorite.
But and it gives you a little bit more of a radius or an error zone to put the ball. Because if you have a big guy with like pterodactyl like arms, you could, you don't have to be perfect all the time.
Exactly. Another receiver that was thought to maybe play this week, but Shanahan still hasn't made that decision, was Ricky Parasol. You surprised that they didn't activate him this week?
Not well. I mean, once you activate someone, you have 21 days to activate. So I guess they thought he wasn't ready yet, conditioning wise or whatnot. I do maintain though. I do wonder once he gets activated, how behind is he actually going to be? Because you got to practice, you got to learn the playbook, you got to block, you got to do all the things that Shanahan wants you to do before you get on the field. But even beyond Pearsall, right? Cowing's out. So they elevated Trent Taylor. I know it's going to, other than George Kittle, I don't know who's going to get excited about that, but hopefully somebody, that's a little bit more sure-handed as a punt returner. Not going to give you a whole lot at receiver, but Cowing didn't as well. Yeah, I'm curious to see when the rookies are going to make a little bit more of an impact, but the Pearsall thing, listen, that could have went so much worse for him. Like whenever he needs to, and they're not hurting at receiver right now anyway, so they can give him as much time as he needs to come back. But we'd love to see him for some of the bigger games. Seattle's a short week, but Kansas City or Dallas before the bye, it'd be cool to see him before the bye. Not imperative, but it's first round pick, right? We all want to see him play.
Yeah, I definitely want to see him play, but I don't want him to jeopardize his health. I mean, he did get shot in the chest.
In, through, out the back, and super duper lucky.
A lot of 49er fans, I don't think they're intelligent enough, and I hate to say that, but if you don't know the playbook or you're not well versed in this offense, you're a liability out there because everything's really meticulous and really difficult.
Yeah.
So where's Cowing? Well, maybe Cowing isn't ready. Maybe he needs more time. Same thing with Pearsall. Like conditioning wise, like you said, is one thing, but missing time, you miss time with the playbook, you miss time with just cohesion. You just can't throw him out there and throw him the ball. It doesn't work like this. Isn't guys my age playing flag football where you just don't have a pass rush and you can just chuck it around. It's professional football against people. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it still feels weird to think that if Jacob Cowing was drafted by another offensive guru mind like a McVay or a Reed or a Stefanski, I bet he'd be on the field already.
Absolutely. Kyle just has their Kyleisms. He doesn't trust young guys with intricacies of offense. So it's rare. I mean, Debo was a rare find. I think Ayuk was too. He did pretty well his first year as well. So
if you're gonna like Kittle and Debo, I mean, if you're gonna be drafted by Kyle and hope to play the first year, you better hope that team sucks that you're coming onto from Kyle, because then it's like, oh, we suck. Let's get the rookies some experience. But it still is surprising me if it is either a trust issue or it's not a talent issue. Anyone who gets drafted is a talented guy, independent of position. But is it trust or do they actually not understand the playbook? And then if that's the case, how much more complicated is Kyle's playbook than other, offensive masterminds? It feels odd to not find a way to get dynamic players on the field sooner rather than later.
A lot of people who have been asked say it is a pretty difficult offense. Remember when Chad Johnson got traded to New England and never could get on the field? He just
got a
couldn't
Super Bowl ring out of that, right? Or no, maybe they lost the Super Bowl when he was there?
I'm not sure. All I know is he wasn't smart enough to play on their offense. He couldn't figure it out, which is super telling how simple some offenses must be in the NFL. Right. But they have like 10 plays and they just flip them or something. Like on Madden, I as a player, when I play Madden against franchise, I probably run only about 10 plays.
True. Yeah.
Crossers, slants, seams.
Forget
Drags.
college football now, man. Like with the triple option and all like wild stuff in different playbooks. Like, yeah, my head's spinning. Like it's easier to grasp this stuff 20, 30 years ago than try to absorb it now.
Oh, it was on the screen after all. It says 49ers 19th in red zone. I wanted to talk about Brock Purdy. I don't know if we talked about this last week, but it feels like the conversation is starting to change a little bit. After the game with the where he was without pretty much everybody against the Rams, even in a loss. I actually have an interesting thing I want to play, and then I want to talk to you about it after, just to get your opinion on how you feel about him. I just think this is a really good clip.
Which leads to Brock Purdy and 30 for Purdy. So Brock made his 25th start on Sunday. So everybody's kind of analyzing, what does it mean 25 games into a career? He's 19-6, and it's all about winning. And he's got a lot of the records as far as 49er record book for yards, completion percentage, touchdowns. But the one that struck me, since the merger of 1970, with Brock Purdy as your quarterback, you are averaging 29.7 points per game. That is number one in the history of the NFL. Patrick Mahomes is second. Tom Brady is fourth. That's a wow. You coached him for 25 games. Tell me about the evolution of your quarterback.
I mean, I'd like to say he's just come along the whole time, but I always go back to that first Miami game and how unbelievable he was off the bench, coming into a very hard situation, the way they were playing us, just under duress, just with all the blitzes, similar to the stuff that we have been seeing in Minnesota these last 2 years. And just how we played that game kind of showed how everything else was going to go. Now, usually the more guys play, they get more scars, things start to happen, and what was unbelievable with Brock, that first year, the 7 games or whatever it was, he almost went through every situation that year. Coming off the bench, playing at a high level, having to do it as a starter, breaking his ribs and having to play 4 days later on Thursday, getting through that, getting through a playoff game, winning a playoff game, then having such a crucial injury at the end of the year to where that's huge risk coming back the next year. He was able to come back, pull it off, carry all the pressure all year, playing at an MVP level and be able to handle that, taking us to a Super Bowl, having a 4-pick game and then bouncing back the next week and playing a great game. And he's been through everything in such a little amount of time, and I mean, it's obvious what he is. I don't get what there shouldn't be any debate. He's done it very consistently, as consistently as anyone. That's what I see with my own eyes, and when I hear stats like that, it's just even more confirmation with what we see.
Care to add?
I didn't know that's great. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't realize, the rounded up, right? 30 points per game.
It's insane.
It's wild. I know they're averaging, I think, about 26 and a half this year through 4 games, which is right in the neighborhood. Minnesota, kind of held them down for a decent portion of that game. Look, any stat or any metric anybody wants to throw out there, even adjusted air yards, like Brock is in the top 3 this year, pushing the ball down the field because the yak isn't as yak worthy without McCaffrey, or basically maybe what they're calling, or a myriad of potential reasons. But there isn't a metric that someone has thrown out that I've either gone, wow, I mean, that's really wild. I can't believe Brock is that good. Or obviously there is no stat that's the opposite. But points are needed to score to win this game, man. It's not golf. It's not low man wins. And, Brock is taking, I think, this offense to another level. And the last 2 things that he probably needs to unlock is maybe a more consistently accurate deep ball. They don't push the ball downfield. It's still a West Coast offense, and they don't need to take shots just for the sake of taking shots. But I think that game against New England, we saw, a handful of shots. One resulted in a pick that was like a little eye-opening, right? Like, wow, all right, they're pushing it vertically. And then I think the running game with his legs, I think he has an opportunity to, when you're scrambling around back there literally for 7, 8, 9 seconds, still looking downfield, wildly commendable. Like, he wants to get the ball into his playmakers' hands. But maybe after 4 or 5 seconds, if no one's in front of you, take off. 2nd and 6 is still better than 2nd and 10. And I think there's a lot of, even if it's 20, 25 yards a game, there's yards to be had there that can just keep the chains moving, stay ahead of the sticks. And, he's a quarterback that can move. He's not a mobile quarterback, and that's totally okay. No one's expecting Steve Young part 2, but I think that's a part of his game that could be there more when he wants to use it, not when he needs to use it.
I think it's just eye-opening the fact that we had someone like Garoppolo who would crater in the pocket.
Oh.
Just absolutely crater. Just sit there and just accept the fact that he was going to get sacked. Pump, 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 pump. Like, what a difference. I don't even know how, as a 49ers fan, I ever thought that he was. I don't know how I got fooled in that 2017 season with those 5 games thinking he was going to be something. I mean, Brock Purdy is just, and the fact that it's taken this long to get the credit he so rightly deserves.
Mhm.
I've seen clips from guys like Brady. I've seen clips from guys like Montana, 2 of the best of all time, giving him praise. I mean, Montana doesn't understand some of the critics either. He doesn't get it,
Right. I mean, it's a performance. Every sport's a performance based business. I think Jimmy I've been and I'm still am a Jimmy fan. And granted, he's a backup on the Rams, so like, what am I really a fan of? But his 5 games in 2017 got him a big contract, got him to a Super Bowl. They had an offense, I think, in 2019 that was in the 28 or 29 points per game, and they didn't have nearly as many weapons as they do
No.
now. And Jimmy was the trigger man. The thing that made me laugh, what you said about how he cratered in the pocket. You can tell watching a game. I mean, I haven't been to a Niner game in person in a while, but just watching on TV, like, you can tell when a sack's about to happen. Like he's always the last one to know. His pocket presence was always bad. But for someone like say a Garoppolo, a Drew Brees, Troy Aikman, people that are not mobile quarterbacks, Tom Brady, even 20 years ago, how can you be in your 20s and a world-class athlete, a football player, highly conditioned, right? How could you have zero mobility? Like, I just don't understand how you can't even be a little bit mobile. You'll never be faster than the D lineman, rushing you, but like, the legs, are they made of cement? Like, I don't understand with some guys, like, literally zero mobility, yet you are a world-class athlete.
Yeah,
Does
Jacoby
not
Brissett
compute.
last week was like, it was like a sitting duck back there. I mean, just some
Yeah.
guys. The thing with Garoppolo is I think he had it a little bit, and then when he blew his knee out, it was whatever was there. He lost the confidence to move around in the
A
pocket.
lot of it was mental. Yeah. Yeah.
For instance, remember the preseason game against the Broncos? Remember that?
Yes.
Where he just looked abysmal. You could tell he was gun shy. He could say all the right things in that game, but you could tell that he was thinking about his knee. I would be,
Well, in the regular
having come.
season one at Denver wasn't really much better when he went out of the end zone on that Sunday night game.
And then you have a guy like Orlovsky, you should be not allowed to comment about that because his was even worse. I mean, he literally ran laterally out of bounds for a good 3-4 seconds before he realized that he was out of bounds. So, you ever notice though, with a lot of these really sucky ass quarterbacks, they always end up becoming analysts and have they think they have some sort of knowledge to pass on to a guy like a Garoppolo, or excuse me, like a Purdy. It's always the guys like the Sean Salisbury was a great example. A blowhard who sucked at quarterback, and I don't ever want to hear it from any of those guys, especially if they're saying anything bad about Brock. I refuse to listen.
Oh, Chris Sims is on Pro Football Talk with Mike Florio.
Florio is just
he's and as long as they're well spoken, because I'm sure so many players, NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, once they get out of the sport, especially players like Chris Sims that hasn't made. I mean, I'm sure he made a good amount of money during his time with Tampa Bay. I don't know who else he was with, but needs another job, needs to keep going. So they do the whole tryouts, and as long as you have some intelligence, and QBs should be, you would think, probably the smartest position players on an NFL roster. You could talk about offense intelligently, not sound like an idiot, but it's kind of like the whole, people that aren't actors become acting teachers. And the same rationale applies. Well, you couldn't cut it as an actor. You're going to tell me how to act. You couldn't cut it as a quarterback. You're going to tell me how to play QB or make all these pontifications about stuff. It's humorous. NFL.
Sometimes
analysts,
they're good. Sometimes they're good. Some guys actually mentally have it. Maybe they just physically never had it. Like the fact that the Niners have as their quarterback coach.
Oh, Greasy
was okay. He was never great. I mean, he came after John Elway, so that's it's like anybody coming after a legend is always going to be looked at, and their expectations were there, and he never could quite reach them. Him and Brock are a perfect pairing.
Mm-hmm.
And it works sometimes, but for the most part, like you said, it's just that's why I don't watch a lot of television like pregame and postgame. I don't watch any shows with Stephen A or any of those type of guys. Nick Wright, he's just
Oh,
an absolutely.
yeah.
I always put on Twitter. I said Nick Wright is the guy who got his books dumped every day in school and probably got wedgies. And so what did he do? He took his nerdism and turned it into a career of being an annoying ass on television. And because he's that annoying ass, it gets people to watch because they can't stand him. So he did all right for himself. Like it just happens. There's other people, me and too, are the same. It's like they're a complete nerd, total like non-athlete, couldn't, dribble a basketball or throw a football if they tried. But they have a lot of opinions, and for some reason, people like to listen to them. So whatever.
I'll tell you what, like, I can't believe that hate watching is a thing, right? And people do it. Like, I hate this person, so I'm going to watch them. It's the most asinine
I've done that before, and I don't know
thing.
why I did it. I was like, what am I doing? Like coming on there and trying to make troll comments and stuff. It's just like, forget it.
Yeah, and I don't like, Nick Wright. I'll see some stuff on Twitter or X, and obviously there's others, but I someone like a Stephen A. Smith, I forgot his ex-partner, Skip Bayless. Like, okay, they're blowhards. They have like loud opinions on stuff. Skip's a big Cowboy fan, and Stephen A. loves it when the Cowboys lose, and so I can get the entertainment aspect of watching some of these folks, but people that watch to hate. Like I'm a big Star Wars fan, unabashed. Some things I like about Star Wars, some things I don't, but there are aspects of Reddit devoted to like certain threads that are devoted to fans that watch Star Wars but hate it. I think one of them's called Saltier Than Crate, that planet from The Last Jedi, that people just go in there to bitch. Like if you're gonna bitch, then don't watch Ahsoka. Don't watch The Acolyte. But they'll watch it because they're fans, but then they have to complain about every aspect of it. There's more. Like, I'm Italian. I can go off on a roll and complain about almost anything. We live in the Northeast. We can complain about anything. People are horrible here a lot of times, right? Traffic and all that stuff. But to spend that much time and energy watching someone you hate and then complaining about it, or complaining about something that you can proactively not watch, is crazy to me. Let me bring it back to football. I'm very curious now for what we're talking about, former players getting into the media, etc. The Niner game will be the first game that I'll be watching and listening to Tom Brady. And I'm curious to see how he does, right? Like, he got a crap ton of money from, was it CBS or Fox, whoever he's with, and Fox. And I'm like, wow, is he worth that much money? Even like a Tony Romo, do people really tune in for announcers? ABC, Amazon, like, are they really bringing in more people to a game? I'm very cynical and questionable about that, but I'm curious to get the Tom Brady experience.
I'm a big time Greg Olsen fan.
Olsen's very good.
He's really good. He gives the Niners a lot of props, but he's also critical too. He's not a homer. Like Collinsworth to me is someone who I have acid reflux, or as Italian people call acida, every time I watch him. He drives me insane. So I don't listen to him. Like if he's doing a Niners game, I mute the television.
Even though no one will ask you this at a party, who is Greg Olsen's old partner and Tom Brady's current partner? Is it Tom Brenneman? Or so, and I'm blanking on this, but when Olsen was paired last year with the play-by-play person, so Greg Olsen went to high school and lived in the town I live in now. Went to one of the two high schools that are in my town, and his play-by-play person graduated, got his bachelor's from the university that's in the town I live in, William Patterson. So anytime they were doing that, it was like the local connection for me. And I was always like kind of cheering them on because they were not like I'm from the town I live in. I'm from another town, but that was always like a nice local thing for me.
Yeah, no one came from Rochester, New York of any there's I think there was like Joni Lauer, who was China in WWE, and I think Bones Jones is from around here, the UFC guy. Other than that, we didn't. Rochester sucks, man. There's no professional sports teams here. I saw a lady today, and I didn't go up to her because it would have been really creepy, but I saw a lady with a Niners hat on and a McCaffrey t-shirt as I was leaving work today, and I wanted to run up to her and be like, "You a Niners fan?" But I didn't do it because I'm a big guy, and she might have sprayed me with mace. But I was like, "Oh my god, a Niners fan!" Every time I see him, I lose my mind because I work for a company that is all about the Bills, and they have Bill stuff up all over the place, and it's just like So anytime I could see a 49ers fan, I didn't do it though, because like I said, if it would have been another dude, I would have like, "What up?" and had him turn around, but I let her go. It would have been weird. So
Somebody stopped me when I was away. I have like a gray 49er t-shirt that it's not overtly obvious that it's a 49er shirt. You can see the SF in like one of the quadrants. It's
yeah,
kind of like a throwback
I have a
thing.
jacket like that too, where it's literally like red and then like little SF like right here.
Yeah. It's so, and my wife didn't even know. I was with my wife and kids. She didn't even know I was wearing a 49er shirt. And I don't know if my son noticed, but I'm someone's coming up to me, and I guess I had my head down. I wasn't paying attention, but like he taps me in the chest. He's like, "Go Niners!" I turn and look. He was wearing a Debo jersey, had a backpack on. So slapped hands, went to go talk to him. He's like, "We're gonna win this weekend against Arizona." I'm like, "Absolutely." So I'm walking away, and my wife's like, and one, I'm not like the mayor. Like I don't know, like I can't go somewhere and I know anybody, or I don't go somewhere and start striking up conversation. So my wife's like, "God, we go on vacation. You even know someone?" I'm like, "I didn't know him. He just happened to see me with my Niner shirt
Got a
on."
Niners,
It's a
yeah.
nice little bonding thing, whatever. So it was cool. Yeah.
If I see somebody with a Niners shirt on and I'm out in public, I'll be like, "Nice shirt."
Yep.
And then I have like my lanyard where my keys are on. That's 49ers. I usually have a Niners hat. I did go through a little bit of a depression after the Super Bowl where I put all my Niners stuff away for about 4 months. I was so mad. I was just wearing black all the time. I would have like a black Yankees fitted on. I would do streams, and people are like, "Where's all your Niners stuff?" I'm like, "I'm under protest right now." But as usual, every year they pull at me and they reel me back in, and then everything comes back out of the bag. So
New year, new hope.
new year, new hope. I'm trying to think. I'm going to pick some news here, bits here and there. Jalen Graham, did you see the news that he came back this week?
Yeah, they signed him to the 53, right? So that was a Warner, little bulky with the ankle. I mean, last week he said, it was weird. He said, "I could have come back in if I had to." He said it in such a way where it was like, "Well, were you medically cleared to play or weren't you?"
Right.
I'm not sure. So he had the ankle. Flanagan Fowles got banged up a little bit. Winters played, but he still had the ankle. Devondre Campbell's not playing well at all. And they have Bethune and obviously Robinson went out with the ACL. So
yeah,
I mean, they thought enough of him to give him a roster spot, which was interesting to me given the position, but they're banged up basically all over, except maybe the O-line when you think about it. They had 2 open spots, right? The 53-man roster, they only had 51 people committed. So they brought Graham back. And then I know they made some elevations, and now Yetur Gross-Matos is on IR. We could probably talk about that in a little bit, but we'll see if Warner doesn't play. I guess it's going to be Bethune that's probably going to start at the mic. Yeah.
Check this. I take this list and I'll show it for everybody that's on here. So it's these are the players that are on IR. Can I put us on the side? Well, let us. No. Oh. Anyways. So we got Feliciano, Matos, Hargrave, McCaffrey. I don't really count Elijah because he's garbage. Not garbage. He's always hurt. So to me, whatever. Ambry Thomas, I don't count either. But Curtis Robinson was a tough one. And then you got NFI, Ricky Pearsall, then the pup, Dre Greenlaw, Drake Jackson. How does he even make it to this team next year after the last couple of years? But
I mean, it's 4 of 22 players that are on 4 of 22 starters are on IR, right? So it's a fifth of the roster. It's about 20% of the roster. So the Niners depth is probably better than folks generally think. They are a top heavy team when it comes to a lot of things, especially salary and some cap issues, but the depth on the D line is totally getting tested. And there you go.
There you go. Niners activated a Kalia Davis, put on IR defensive lineman Yetur Gross-Matos. I guess they list him as a defensive tackle, and then they activated T.Y. McGill and I hate Trent Taylor. I really do.
He's got his role on this team, and it's just not to screw up punts.
We were talking about this last week. The fact that you never was it you? There was like this team literally has turned into a team where it used to be a meritocracy, and now like players are making the team just based on the fact that they have popularity with the head coach or other players. I think that's just insane.
I think they're definitely hedging their bet with Jacob Cowling for punt returner. And I'm okay if he's going to be a bit more consistent. I mean, well, Cowling's been consistent outside of the one fumble, but it was a little wild last week, right after Cowling got hurt. Juice was out there for a punt return. Remember that? But the one thing I want to see with Taylor, or just special teams in general, talking about punt returns, stop fielding the ball inside the 10. Isn't there like some sort of NFL Cardinal rule?
You can fair catch it. You can fair catch it, and you automatically get it at like the 30 or the 25, right?
Get away from, let it bounce into the end zone. I mean, Cowling's a couple times fielded it close to the 5. That's just field awareness that is just low. And Juice, when he came in, I think he fielded at the 11. Let it go.
I don't understand.
Let it go.
I think special teams used to be something that people took pride in and could build a career off of. And it seems like guys don't. One person made a good comment. They don't think the Niners put as much onus into special teams as they do, like, say, like defensive line or offensive skill position players. Like, it seems like special teams, and they always say if you're going to win a game, you need to win at least 2 out of the 3 phases, right? They consistently suck at special teams no matter what. Every week it's a different failure. It's a fumble, it's a blocked kick, it's a blocked punt, or somebody fields it, or they allow the return of the Rams to midfield and they end up losing the game.
I think it's a hard phase of the game for a lot of us fans to really appreciate what goes into it, because at least as an organization, they spend a mid-round pick on Wishnowsky. They spent a 3rd round pick on Moody. They brought George Odom over, gave him a contract extension. They brought Oren Burks over from, I guess it was Green Bay at the time, for a couple of years. So they're trying to get key pieces involved, right? But how much of a special teams unit, outside of the punter and kicker, because they're the ones pinning teams back deep or getting, scoring points, how much is one player going to make a difference outside of Matthew Slater with the Patriots or Don Beebe when he was with the Bills? Like, how much does, kick returners like a Devin Hester, stuff like that? I get it. But when you're talking about coverage units, you're really just dredging up the bottom players on your O-line, your D-line, your linebackers, your corners, and coaching them up to be a good special teams unit. So if it's not as much the talent, is it as much the talent or the coaching? I don't know, but it's been an issue for far too long. No matter who you're bringing in and out, it always sucks. So I literally do not know the answer other than if it's firing Brian Schneider. And he was with Seattle and he's only been here, what is it, maybe 3 years or 4? Hasn't been.
And I thought he was a great hire when he first came in. I don't know about you, but I thought, I was like, oh yeah, awesome.
Well,
nope.
Compared to who they had or what was going on, it's like, yeah, something.
I think me and my guy Bashar were talking about on Tuesday. We were talking about, remember our special teams coordinator in the mid 90s, Stewart, his last name was, I think. And he was a really rambunctious guy. He would high five players and chest bump them. He was I forget what game it was, but it seemed like there was passion in the special teams game. Like guys took their job as a gunner or as a return man super serious. Dexter Carter, for crying out loud, was here for 5 or 6 seasons just to be a kick returner. He wasn't great, he was a little small, but I mean, even they don't. I feel like they don't develop, or guys don't want to develop. But I feel like that's a good way to make yourself onto the 53-man roster, is to be a good special teams player. If you can't crack the starting lineup, wouldn't you want to put all your effort into being a good kick returner or a good gunner?
You would think,
to get the coach's attention, because a guy like Kyle Shanahan, he pays attention to stuff like that. He is a big proponent on hey, you're on special teams, make the best of it. I don't know, man. It's the scary part. Every time we have a game that's close, like last week when it was a 10-point game, and then we had another, I'm like, are you serious? Every week there's a problem. Can we have 1 week? Can we block a kick and return it for a touchdown? Or can we, hit a 60-yard field goal to win the game and have it, I don't know. It gets to the point where I expect failure to happen, and then it does. which is the New Yorker in me, I guess. But
Well, special teams has become the just don't screw it up. And
Pretty
Moody has
much.
only missed one. He was perfect against New England. What, 6 for 6, 3 extra points, 3 field goals. Missed the 55-yarder against the Rams. That's still a coin flip kick. I mean, everyone's seeing, Tucker and Aubrey from the Cowboys and think like, oh, these are just automatic now. Like if there was a 45-yarder or 40, yeah, you want to get the nails out and crucify him, sure. But like 55 yards, that's still like, a 50% ish or less type of a kick. But the Guerrero thing, the fumbling on the kickoff return, running into his own guy, only saw 1 carry last week. Debo saw 2. I know they're ramping up McCaffrey, but he's not going to be coming back before the bye week. I still don't know why, unless he's on a roster. I don't think he is. Like someone like a Matt Breida, you would think there'd be a little bit of trust there that he can maybe eat, 4 or 5 carries from Mason and maybe help out in the red zone. But they're very defiant of it's Mason, it's not really Guerrero, and it's certainly not Patrick Taylor. It is in no way, shape, or form Patrick Taylor getting any carries as the number 3 running back. So I'm curious this whole time why Shanahan hasn't, if he's like the big trust guy or really needs to trust you to do something, I'm surprised he hasn't brought in a player that can take some of the load off of Mason yet. And it's not going to happen.
And that's the scary thing right now, because if Mason goes down, it's Guerrero. Are you confident in a guy like Guerrero? I'm not.
I mean, they'd have to bring someone. I mean, do they bring up Keyshawn Vaughn from the practice squad or sign somebody? Because they're not going to feel good about. I mean, Guerrero might have to be the lead back, but you can't give him 25 carries a game. There's no way.
Same thing with Patrick Taylor.
Yeah,
there's no way in hell that I would trust him. Although right now, the way I'm feeling about Guerrero, I might trust him a little bit more.
I mean, Patrick Taylor got carries in the playoff game for the Packers. Playoff game, and Shanahan can't find in the first month of the season a game to give him a couple carries. Come on.
Yeah, he's being crusty Kyle, man. You ask him that question, he's probably going to get pissed at you. Let's talk about the weather for this game. It's supposed to be close to 100. They wanted to get the all whites worn, and the league turned them down, so they're going to wear their red top, white bottoms.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I thought that, I mean, that's the same thing. Like the Cowboys, I know it's like a historic thing, but they wear their road jerseys for every home game, the white jerseys. And the Rams, whenever the Niners are there, why do the Rams allow the Niners to wear their red jerseys when fans take over Levi South? It's almost like acquiescing. Yes, this is your home stadium. We'll wear our road jerseys. The fact that the NFL turned that down, I'm sure there's a very good reason. I've never heard that is gamesmanship, right? That's gamesmanship. And I can't believe the NFL is saying, no, we know why you're doing it. You sweat your asses off. Give the Cardinals white. That's absurd.
I mean, they had it. When's the last time they won their home whites? Wasn't it against the Carolina Panthers when we crushed them and Bosa had to pick interception?
So yeah, that's a rarity. That is a rarity. Yeah.
Yeah. They try it, and the league said no bueno. So the Niners are going to wear their red and white alternates tomorrow, red on white.
And it's got black in it. It's got the black outline, so there's even more dark colors that they have to deal with on their uniform.
95, dude. The Bucks play in that weather every week. I don't understand what's going on here. I'm not saying that it's easy to play in the heat because I've worked in the heat and it's unbearable. I'm a redhead, so my head turns into blacktop when I'm outside. Redheads, the sun just absorbs into your hair. But so there's that. I wanted to ask you about, I can't say his name, number 91, Sam Okueano or Oko. He had a big game last week, and now it looks like he might be one of the Niners. He's really their only alternate pass rusher to come in, him and Robert Beal.
Yeah.
Did you how'd you feel about him in the last game?
I was surprised. He had a good last game. I mean, he earned his way onto the active roster, got promoted from the practice squad. So good for him. I mean, this is a team that everyone felt like they were searching for yet another pass rusher. And he's a bit of a tweener, right? He's like 6'1", 270. So it's like kind of for an NFL lineman, short and squat. And that size,
he's pretty short.
Maybe 300 pounds to be a D tackle. But he's playing outside and he's given, 15 to 20 snaps a game, and they're valuable. Robert Beal hasn't, I mean, it's only his second year. It's what, 16, 20 games into his career developing. Drake Jackson hurt. Now Yetur Gross-Matos is down for at least 4 weeks. So he's going to get valuable snaps, and he had a good showing against New England. Even the week before against the Rams, he had a sack on Stafford. Excited for him. Like, he's someone that, we're always rooting for the underdog or the practice squad player that makes good. I think where it gets out of hand is training camp, where a lot of fans want every undrafted player to make the roster. Like, that guy's going to be awesome, or Mason Pline at tight end, or Cody Schrader, or whoever it's going to be. And cool. I'm always rooting for the Rudy character, but this is a nice storybook type continuation for him, grinding. He, was on the Rams, got cut, and Niners practice squad showed out well. And he's on a D line that, even though injured, it still has talent. So whatever he's done, he's absolutely earned it. And listen, if he can make tomorrow a hellish, outside of the heat, but a hellish afternoon for Kyler Murray, awesome.
Yeah. Who else had 2 sacks last week? Defensive tackle. I'm trying to think.
Givens did. I think at 2.5. Yeah.
Yeah. He's an interesting to bring him in on pass rushing downs, because he seems like that's awesome. Like, the more the merrier, right? We need to get after the passer. I'm always been a big proponent of defensive pressure up the middle, because I feel like when you go when you rush from the outside, especially with a guy like Murray, he just escapes around it.
Yeah.
Whereas if it comes up the middle, it's a lot harder, because if you're crashing, you have a better chance to get him on the sack on the end. So yeah.
Now, what do you think from a defensive pressure standpoint? So they blitz 33% of the time against the Patriots, which is kind of funny because they're not a passing team. And I think they were up from like 13 or 14% for the first 3 weeks. Do you think they're going to bring the same amount of heat against Kyler and say, all right, make quick decisions and beat us? Or you think they're going to revert more to we'll rush you with 4, we'll play 7 behind it, make you make a mistake? And you don't think they're going to press the issue? Yeah.
I don't think they're going to press the issue, because they will if they miss, they're going to get burnt. You have enough guys in coverage, you can have somebody downfield that could actually make a tackle, hopefully, right? Yeah, with him, with a guy, if it was a guy like Brady, I hate to say this, but if it was more of a stoic quarterback who doesn't move, then yeah, I would blitz, because they can't get out of their own way.
Yeah.
But if it's a guy like him who could move, even Russell Wilson in his prime, blitzing was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because he played, parking lot ball just like Murray does, where they just spin, and throw. People are like, oh yeah, they tore you apart with that guy. Well, yeah, if you're scrambling for 15 seconds, somebody's probably going to be open. I don't care if you have Dion back there. So, trying to think. We got we've hit a lot of the let's talk about Brandon Ayuk. Think that he maybe has a coming out party in this game. I know we talked about it earlier, but this would be a great game for him to come out, right? I mean, he's been non-existent for the first 4 weeks of the season.
I mean, I guess, are we defining coming out as 100 yards? Like, if we can get him to, 5 or 6
100 yards and a touchdown, maybe.
It's not too much to ask for, especially if the Arizona has enough firepower to make this a game into the third, fourth quarter that they're hanging around and the Niners have to keep throwing. I mean, again, I think the recipe for this team, and I forget the exact stat and I apologize, but this is a team that wins at a higher clip when Brock throws under 30 times than when he throws over 30 times. So if you say 29, out of 29 attempts, if Kittle plays, I know he's got a rib issue, but between Kittle and JJ and Debo and Ayuk, like, if they split it evenly, that's what, 7 targets each.
If I'm the Niners, I try to run almost 40 times in this game. Just keep them off the field. Do what you usually do. Nice long 7-minute drives and score.
Listen, I love that.
I love when they play that type of football.
I love that. And I know you're not Coach Kyle, but you're Coach Aaron. How are you going to split up 40 carries?
I'd give 26 or 27 to Mason, which is a lot. I'd maybe get 5 to Debo. And maybe 8 carries to Garendo, maybe. I don't know.
Listen, I'm with you. Like, even if they got to 35, like you said, even if it was 25, 5 and 5, that's kind of like, that's a nice breakdown. But I could see Coach Aaron and Coach Al doing it. I don't know if Coach Kyle's going to do that.
No. Kyle does like to have the games where he doesn't throw the ball much and he just runs it all the time. He's a lot like his daddy. He likes to run the football and kind of, run it to the point where people just don't want to tackle anymore and they quit. I love that. I love old school football.
Yep.
Run 40 times a game, just tire a defense down where they're just like, I'm tapping out, I'm gone. And
and it's so hard to be, and everyone says in a lot of sports, right? When you're careful is when you get hurt. When you're thinking about your knee or your ankle or your calf or whatever, that's when you can get hurt. So as careful as you want to be with Mason, I mean, he could hurt himself the way Dre did in the Super Bowl. And the way that went, right? If Dre was going to hurt himself bouncing on the sidelines, then you would have to think that it probably would have gotten torn later in the game. Like it felt like it was on the verge and it just happened when he was on the sideline. But Mason, as much as you want to protect him,
if you run scared, you're going to get hurt.
If he runs scared, he's going to get hurt. But he can get hurt on the first carry. He can get hurt on the 30th carry. The thing that drove me bonkers to start last game, and I'm going to preface this after I say it, is Debo was questionable all week. He missed a game with a calf injury, was questionable going into the game with a calf injury. He lined up the game as the starting running back the first drive and got a handoff. And here's my couching part. I understand if you're healthy enough to play, it shouldn't really dictate where or how much you play if you're given the green light. But are you serious, Kyle?
Yeah.
Like this is what scares me is when McCaffrey gets healthy, he's going to get 25 carries that first game. Whereas I talked about it on my show on Monday. Why not ease him in as a third down back, right? Give him 5-10 carries a game. But the minute he's good, Kyle's going to run his ass into the ground. Like I don't.
Kyle has this ability to take players and use them like you would in Madden, where like you just keep throwing them to him or running into him. But in real life, you do that. You wear people down. And Kyle doesn't care. And if you ask him after the game, he just I go with the hot hand. Whatever. Kyle's never going to be like, yeah, you're right. Probably should have ran Garendo more in the game. Just in case, so that Mason didn't get hurt. You will never hear that from Kyle Shanahan.
No,
ever in a million years.
If Garendo or Patrick Taylor is not a viable number 2 running back right now, it can't be Debo. It shouldn't be Debo. It should be someone else out there that Kyle could have a little bit more faith in the running game. It can't be. They've gotten away with it being a one-man show with Mason so far. And he's on pace for what? Like something absurd, like 1,700 yards, 1,800 yards. And he's not going to get there unless McCaffrey takes a step back in his rehab. But, it feels like the days of like the workhorse. I mean, Derrick Henry's still getting a lot of carries. This isn't like the 90s with Terrell Davis and Emmitt Smith or whatever. You have, surprise, other running backs on your roster for a reason.
Yep.
And it's not like, the Patriot game was a 3-point game throughout and they were worried about giving someone else a carry. There were opportunities when you're up 20-0 or in the fourth quarter to do that. And he still didn't. And I'm sure unless they get up huge, we're going to see more of the same tomorrow. Knock on wood. I don't have Mason on my fantasy team, but that's other than Brock. That's the next player that if that player goes down, it's a big time. Oh crap moment.
Yeah, definitely. And I hope that doesn't happen. Real quick, let's just do a little score prediction for tomorrow. I'll let you go first.
Oh boy. The line, at least last I checked on Monday, was 7.5. And I feel like this is going to be a closer game, whether it's a backdoor cover or non-cover. But I'm going to say 27-20 San Francisco. The Niners are averaging, I think, 26.5 a game. The Cards are putting up like not far off, about 24, 23.5, 24. They can score. I think the Murray driving the Niners defense crazy factor is going to be a thing tomorrow. But I also think the Niners defense can basically do what they want. That doesn't mean they're going to score every possession. I'm sure they'll punt once or twice per half. But I feel like 27-20. The Cardinals, I don't even know what exponential number you want to use, but exponentially have more offensive firepower than New England. And their defense, while worse, the Niners, there's going to be lapses where they fall asleep and go 3 and out for no reason, or Kyle has a bad string of play calls, or Brock misses something that they may have a drive or two where they leave points on the table. So I'll be a little conservative and say 27-20. At this point, just get the victory, because no matter what Seattle does against, they're playing the Giants, right? And I think Malik Neighbors is out. Whatever Seattle does against the Giants, the Thursday night game is for first place in the division. So just get the win and just don't look horrendous doing it. Like give me a little bit, give me half of the fourth quarter where it's like a 2-score game. I'm like, all right, Arizona scored a touchdown. It's a 7-point game, but they're still not going to come back. I'll be okay with that.
I'm going to go 31-24, similar to you, kind of a 1-score game. I think the Niners score a good amount of points, but I think their defense gets tested with the Connor / Murray, extravaganza, a lot of running around, a lot of off-scheduled stuff. Niners defense needs to prove it against more than just the Patriots for me to kind of my confidence in the defense right now is not too high. Last week's game didn't help because the team they were going against was really bad as far as like skill positions. So 31-24, I'll take it. It's a division game. I really don't care. I mean, I do care. I would love to see them have a really good defensive outing, but I just feel like it's going to be close.
I'm with you. And these 2 weeks are going to be important division games, right?
Yeah.
Arizona hasn't looked good. Seattle, as much as people were kind of riding that the first 3 weeks, they played Denver, Miami, and another team that just wasn't good offensively. And the Lions just did whatever they wanted to them. So that whole Mike McDonald defensing, while still like they got a legit secondary and Geno Smith's leading the NFL in passing in terms of yards, that could be a fun shootout type of game that might be defense optional on Thursday. But as long as the Niners get the win against Arizona, that is for first place in the West. And it could be a nice jumping off point for San Francisco, because the games, these next 4 games, they're getting harder, right? You got Arizona, you got Seattle, then you got Kansas City, and then who knows where Dallas is going to be with Parsons hurt and, all that crap. But it could be a nice little build up. Again, 4-4 would be okay getting into the bye. 5-3 would be great. I don't think they'll be 6-2. But another
I'm thinking 5-3 is where they go into the bye.
Games. Yeah, it should have been 3 straight tune-up games. Rams, Patriots, Cardinals. It's not the case, but this is tune-up game number 2.
Yeah. I think that's it, man. I think we nailed it. A little late Saturday night stream here. We'll be back next week on a normal time, Thursday at 8 p.m.
Yep.
If all goes according to plan. And I'll be back to my 4 streams a week, which as much as it kind of stresses me out a little bit, I also kind of look forward to it too at the same time. So
absolutely,
everybody have a great rest of your evening. We will talk to you guys later. Take care and go Niners.
Go Niners, guys.